Dirty Bomb, a fast-paced shooter where teams of mercenaries battle through radiation-ravaged London for riches and bragging rights. As they say, what's a little radiation sickness when there's money to be made?
What is up, everybody? Yes, I am talking to you, the viewer. Welcome to our impressions video of the game Dirty Bomb on the Game Fanatics. I am Josh, and with me today is my partner in crime, Tom. Today we are talking, as mentioned, about Dirty Bomb, developed by Splash Damage. Tom, Splash Damage, the developer, Dirty Bomb, their game. How do we start this conversation, this discussion about such a controversial studio?
Well, I suppose the best thing is to talk a bit about the actual developer history.
Oh my goodness,
this is basically... Yes, obviously we've had a bit of a peppered history with them. So it's developed by Splash Damage. It's a British developing team and previously known for the Enemy Territory games. So you've got the absolutely fantastic Wolfenstein spin-off being Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. I have plunged so many hours into that. Also, the not-so-good Enemy Territory Quake Wars, which died a horrible death not long after
Question
launch.
though, because I've played the Wolfenstein version, which was fantastic, though it was quite a dated game now. But then you got the Quake version. I never played the Quake version. So did they actually borrow a lot of what was in the Wolfenstein and then carry it over?
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of it was very similar because the engine itself was quite basic, so you didn't need to tinker much with it. The problem was that it was just very kind of frayed around the edges. Nothing really connected up. A lot of the collision it just felt clunky and slow. It just wasn't very good. And the problem was there wasn't enough time or support or interest for them to actually fix anything. There's no point in it at the end of the day if no one's playing the game.
Yeah, because it's kind of... Maybe it's the potentially their starting of snowballing, I guess you could say, about how the quality of their games have moved on into the future from the first Enemy Territory to, say, now Dirty Bomb. So things like, obviously, they're widely known for, Brink, and now we've got this one coming out. They kind of disappeared into the backdrop for a while. Now they've come back with Dirty Bomb, which is it shares a lot of the same qualities of their previous attempts. So it makes you wonder, kind of, can they kind of make up for their past sins?
Well, I think any company has an opportunity to make up for past mistakes, and they have had some great, they have had some great titles, but there's unfortunately Dirty Bomb is left a bit lacking in certain areas, and maybe a lot of their time had gone into developing the multiplayer for Arkham Origins, which, as you have more experience than me, I think you can talk a little bit about that.
We will get into that, don't you worry. But with Dirty Bomb, basically everybody. So Dirty Bomb is a competitive shooter from what we know at the moment. There's very limited content to go on from what we've played in the open beta. Basically, you have an objective mode, and it kind of shares the exact same stuff to Brink, where basically you have your... what would you say, rush mode inspired from Battlefield. So you got to set C4 on one team and the other team has to disarm it. And then there's also the one where you have to escort like an AI APC thing, which again is, these modes were in Brink and they work quite well. I mean, it's one of those things where what's the point of fixing it if it ain't broke, in a way. And then at the same time as that, you have your multiple classes, and this is going into a completely different area which we will get into, but for what it is, it's a simplistic competitive shooter, and it's got limited mode content at the moment. I mean, hopefully, as we discussed before, they might be able to put some other things in it, like, say, a horde mode or so, because not everybody likes to get pummeled in the face continuously like we were at the start of this beta.
Yeah.
It was quite painful. But at the same time, because of how they've moved on from Brink, I mean, the game feels so much like Brink, but at the same time, it feels more like a held-back version. So things like, with Brink, you had, their massive concept was parkour and being able to jump off walls and shoot at the same time. Slide shooting, which was one of the first things I tried when jumping into a match in Dirty Bomb. And you can't do all that kind of stuff. It's literally just straightforward, kind of Counter-Strike, but with stats. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's very strange with the actual physics of the players because everyone moves extremely fast. So the sprint is unlimited. You feel it's a really weird kind of juxtaposition because you feel very light on your feet, However, if you jump, the character pretty much slaps onto the ground straight away, so they are actually very heavy, and you can't mantle things. You can't, you'd expect there's plenty of little areas which would be fantastic to get up to, and they're obviously designed for it, but there is no mounting, there's no like jumping off of things. It's fast but heavy. It's almost as if you're on roller skates,
Which was a great thing in Brink, and it was something that everybody actually enjoyed about that game. I mean, the game had so many negative things about it, but one of the great things was the movement. And at the same time, you've got all these newer games, like, say, Call of Duty now, incorporating mantling and slide shooting, parkour, whatever you want to call it, all into these games, and yet Splash Damage have kind of taken a step back. For some reason, I wouldn't even call it going back to their roots, because they didn't really have a root with that kind of concept. So it's kind of like I don't know, it's like unfixing. It's just breaking.
That's absolutely right. Because, recently we've seen a huge kind of resurgence in what I would class as the arena shooter. So, and one of the terms that was coined and used a lot with Sledgehammer's release of Call of Duty was verticality. Now, just adding that little bit with the double jump there, it turns it into an arena shooter. You've got more than just your standard flat floor to work with. You're having to look up, you're having to look down. It fills out the arena. It makes it feel like a more fleshed environment rather than an almost on-the-rails experience.
And it will, at the same time, there is like partial parkour in there. Well, not even, I wouldn't even call it parkour. It kind of, when I was doing it, basically you have these thin blue sheets on the walls, and you can rebound off them. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the original Splinter Cell, where you could like side jump into a wall and just kind of like ricochet you off into like some kind of random direction. So you can do that, but it's so limited to what these kind of games are now, and it feels punishing. It feels like it's actually punishing the player for exploration, for trying to get round to different pathways that are in the game, because generally from what we played, you have the objective, then you have two different paths. The team that's defending has to obviously make sure no one gets down them, but it feels too straightforward, and when you're trying to think outside the box, there is actually no kind of creative inspiration to do that, because they've obviously taken that step back, which, I don't know, it's just like such a massive downside.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of balancing issues with it. I think the thing we both found was a little overpowered and dominated the gameplay with the artillery strikes. Something that it's not earned, it's there straight away for certain classes, and it reloads within a few seconds and you're able to spam it again.
Or at the same time, with the movement, you just saw everyone bunny hopping everywhere, which was just, so in a way, people are trying to be creative, but in like some kind of really poor, forced. It's just like, you don't want it. It's one of those things where the game's trying to take itself seriously in the theme of itself, but then obviously it's got like this comedic thing about it as well, with like there's a lot of humor in the game. There's the whole thing with the original tutorial intro was actually it had some quite smirky moments, but then you don't really want to be playing a game and seeing everyone hopping around like some kind of weird rabbit on crack,
Yeah, it's true. And, leave that to the arena shooters. Leave it to your Quake and your Counter-Strike for the bunny hopping.
Exactly, so you got your Quake, you got your Unreal Tournament, and it's weird because those games are so old and they did it perfectly, but with the way that the mechanics in this game work, so as you were mentioning, you do have like your artillery strikes, which are a pain in the ass, and we'll get to those, but then you have like your actual straightforward shooting, and things like it warns you at the start of the game, don't use iron sights, and to use your hipfire and such, but then at the same time, they kind of switched it where iron sights just felt horrible. It's like there was no balance whatsoever with the iron sights. But then with hip-firing at long range, but then hip-firing at close range sucked, even though the long range felt great. It's like, where did they come up with the reasoning for that? It just seemed so odd.
Yeah, it's just very bizarre in the fact that if you want to use the iron sights, you're punished for it initially And you can actually.
It's just
And
ridiculous.
how many times do we get excellent shots on distance from hip fire? There's no recoil over distance. It's only.
Oh, I'm sure the viewer's going to see the footage.
Yeah.
I mean, it was saying in the tutorial, it was going, "Oh, you did great. You did a headshot." And the headshots was like generally like 2 shots, and they would take down the little dummy thing. But in this, they have like it takes like 8, and the accuracy and the recoil is just all over the place. And that's just because of how the game's gameplay mechanics like jilts you into using that card system where buying better weapons but then increasing the stats by using all the money and the credits that you have to grind and such. But it just, as like an introductory thing, the tutorial kind of lies to you in a way,
Yeah, and actually that brings us onto a very interesting point. You were talking about the credit system.
Just so everybody knows, I'm going to be bitching about this game.
Yeah, so
to constant
So
extent.
the most important thing, the big question is, being a free-to-play game, is it pay to win? Yes, Yes, it is pay to win. So many things, like to begin with, the classes are locked behind a paywall. Now you can play matches and obviously get enough in-game credits to unlock them. The alternative, though, is so extortionately expensive. I mean, you're looking at, per class, you're looking at about £5 to £7.
It was £5.79 for a single character, which is just shocking.
So you're looking at, that's about $3.50 at the moment, $4, and
they do it in a kind of like Heroes of the Storm hexagon selection system as well. So obviously they've got some clear inspiration from that, but they've taken that like paywall, and there isn't stuff there to kind of breadcrumb you to it, which is just annoying, because there was that initial thing where you start the match with your first one and you get like that massive boost in credits. They give you like 12,000 in-game credits to use on whatever you like, but the characters themselves are like 70,000, and you make like 58 credits per match. If you do, I did well in one match. I got like a few triple kills and such, and you get no reward. So there's just this immense grind, which I just don't know about.
I call that, at least that initial thing, I call that the King Saga syndrome, which we see so many times on the mobile games where you do something initially, it's all flashy and shiny and nice sound, like, oh, you've been rewarded for this, and the player then thinks, wow, that's a good feeling. They kind of really tap into that to start with. Okay, if I carry on like this, I can get more doing the same thing, but it takes a lot more effort than that and a lot more time.
But it doesn't even have that kind of carrot on the end of the stick feeling to it. It's basically kind of like they've snapped like 3/4 of the carrot off, giving you this little bit, and they're keeping all of that to themselves, and they're then basically saying, give me your wallet. And so it's got that whole thing of like, it gives you that chunk, so with those credits at the start, but then there was just nothing to work from towards that. Like, we ended up spending all of our credits on the purchasable case cards, which are card packs. They're definitely just card packs, just like in Hearthstone. So you'd get a selection of them, you may get a rare, you never know, but with things like Hearthstone, you got something good. It made you feel like, I want to work towards getting these card packs. I want to actually do well in a specific area, and I know I can actually achieve more by playing a certain way, and then getting a platinum card or a glittery card, or whatever you kids call them these days. But there was nothing in there for Dirty Bomb. You never got like a selection of good ones. You always got like a basic one, and then it would always go past, like when it would have that, it showed you like a roulette reel of all the different cards that you may get in this roulette from you opening the case, but you always got a rubbish one, and the really rare one will be right next to you. I mean, it doesn't make you feel inspired. It doesn't urge you to like work towards them.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. It is the fact that all these things are hidden behind the paywall, and then there's other things as well. So they've obviously, like a lot of other free-to-play games, they've introduced crafting. Now,
oh god, here we go.
Yeah. So what you have to do is, if you get, and the chances are, when you get these crates that you use your in-game credits on, or your real money, if you so wish to, you end up getting certain bonus loadouts for your existing characters. Now, with these loadouts, quite often what they'll go is, oh, here you go, you've got all these nice new loadouts with new weapons for all the characters that
and
you
stat
don't
buffs.
have.
I was getting
So
things like 20% more damage to your melee strikes, and
yeah. And this is where the whole pay-to-win thing comes in, is the fact that you get these bonuses that you can purchase, which allow you to get things like extra splash damage, faster health regen. It's not just a cosmetic thing. These are actual literal stats that you can buy with real money to give yourself an advantage in the game. I think it's frankly disgusting that they would actually go ahead with this route. The crafting is just unnecessary as well.
Which we were initially excited about, because at first we were really disappointed with the card system, but then when we noticed that you could craft, and then going to that craft page and realizing it requires, say, if you want to get like a silver tier card, one card, potentially, because you don't even know what you're going to get, you then have to sacrifice, we're going to say sacrifice, basically sacrifice like 4 bronze cards, which might be like a good one in there, you never know, but you have to give up all of that for this one random silver card, which may suck, and then you have to pay to actually start the crafting as well. So not only are you sacrificing your cards, your inventory that you've worked really hard to achieve, because again, you're not getting that many credits to start with. Again, about 58 was it about? I think, did you actually get anything higher than, like, I got 58.
72 was the highest.
Mr. Show-Off.
That was a winning
I see how
match.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, as a comparison, that's 72 in-game credits. Now, one of those packs costs 1,000. Now, we got a big chunk of in-game credits to start with.
13,000 or something.
But considering that's for the stat boosts, and then if you want to buy one of these characters that you get these stat boosts for, that you can't use straight away, then it's going to cost, what was it, about 50,000?
Yep. Yes, it was.
Now, you look at that, you got an average of about 50 a game. 50,000. That's absolutely ludicrous.
And how long were the matches? They're around 10 to 15 minutes? Well, depending...
I believe the countdown time was about 15 minutes to start with, and that can extend depending on what the objectives are.
And at the same time as that, even though they give you... It feels like it's just a slog. They basically give you daily goals as well, so at the start we had... I think it was you had to use the support class a certain amount of time and such, but we played the game for a considerable amount of hours and made little to no progress, and it just... It's just so painful that they're making you do that, but it is just to... It's basically punching you in the face while you're down, going, I really want to be good at this game, but they're going, give me your money. The game, it should just be called Dirty Tactics. We're just going to call it that. That's the game's title now, Dirty Tactics.
Now, I suppose we should speak about the aesthetic of the game.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah, so actually, the characters themselves, design-wise, they're okay. They're not terrible.
Shares a lot of the inspirations from Brink. You can see the engine has been reused, but there is that kind of... I mean, we agree that it might be because it was a beta, but there were lots of jaggies and rendering issues, especially on the guns. When you switch out, it seems to completely restart the gun model for some reason whenever you switch from your sidearm to your assault rifle for some reason.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of it, apart from the texture popping, they want to make this game available to as many people as possible, which is why it's why they've designed it on DirectX 9, which is it's a little outdated at best anyway, but they want as many people to buy this and as many people to play as possible. So they do have, I will say, in favour of it at least, they do have that varying option where you can drop the graphics considerably and still run it on a lower machine, or you can make it look, we'll call it semi-decent on a big rig like ours.
Yeah.
The actual character design, it's nice, so it's okay. Yeah, it's probably
acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably got a lot in common with the Source engine as far as the versatility with the graphics goes, but they're still jagged around the edges. For something that we're running on the highest specs on 1080p. Oh, by the way, there isn't an option for any higher than that on the resolution yet, and no SLI option either. So. Fun times with that.
No.
Not that it needs it. That's the thing. I could run this on a far lower cards, just a single one. It'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, there's
with the same. Seeing as we're talking about the quality of the game with the visuals, what about the audio? This is something that
I knew this would come up sooner or later. I'm amazed it's taken us this long.
Yeah, we're just drumming our way through it, but the audio now. Initially, again, one thing that I thought when I first turned the game on, the intro tutorial, it started off good. The sound, there was the music's all right, it's fine. But then you got the voice acting. There was the announcer, which I think was only at the start of the game. It was okay. You had some issues with the Tannoy lady in the tutorial.
Yes, the Tannoy lady.
We'll start with Tannoy lady, because there is a few other people to mention as well.
Yep. Yeah, so Tannoy lady. So you've got so the first guy who's leading you through. He's obviously he's very close to you as far as audio goes. It's over the headset and that, and it's your typical English SAS guy these days. You know, they're coming up in all kinds of games ever since Modern Warfare, the first one. So you're a real kind of go to this destination kind of thing, and it's like, all right, soldier, I'm your sergeant, but I'm also your chum as well. Let's go grab a pint. It's all that right, kind chum, of thing.
Let's go complete objective.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had the Tannoy where it was giving you other objectives, and it sounded like the voice actor had fallen asleep.
Warning. Training possibility. Multiple system failures detected.
It was like, oh, there you go.
She was just bored out of her mind, wasn't she? Yeah. She's obviously done it quite a bit. So, could you ask the player to heal the dummy again, please? Okay.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, can you just heal them? Yeah, don't really care.
She's just
anymore.
like, she's just shortening her nails. She's saying it. Oh my goodness.
She's just there.
And then,
yeah.
and then we have the Prime Supreme Artie. What kind of class would we? Just a medium range submachine. Was he a medic? No, he wasn't. He was a support. He was a support who could use artillery strikes. That was it. But it was all about his voice acting. What do we think of his voice acting?
Now this is very sketchy territory, and I knew you passed this over to me.
We need to just hold back a little bit when we talk.
Hold up. I think we should at least show them what we're meaning. So if we show them now.
You want ammo? I got ammo. You want fire support? I got fire support.
That's basically what you're listening to. That's what we heard, and that's what everyone around the world is going to be listening to when this game fully launches, I assume.
Yeah, so to call it a stereotype, in a time when a lot of games these days are showing great diversity and everything, but this, I mean, talk about, dodging a
it's not even like Overwatch
to...
has a few little stereotypes, but at least it pays, it has a little bit of respect for the origins of these people.
Yeah,
and at the same time, Splash Damage is a British located development studio, and so obviously maybe they had a few in-house people that could do some of the British accents. Obviously they didn't have the budget to hire a foreign accent.
Yeah, although it's a strange contrast because you got Kira, who I believe is Japanese, blue-haired girl, and she sounds legitimately, she sounds the part. Artie...
Did you say that I was possibly one of the developer's girlfriends, so maybe they pulled that one off?
Quite possibly. But as far as the other voice acting goes, I mean, the standard British guys, you've got one of the guys sounds like Morgan Freeman. The discount Morgan Freeman.
Oh, it was such a discount Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, it's just, and you shall always be a gun. Andy Dupree. And it was very much that kind of thing.
I will heal you.
With one hand, I save a life, and with the other hand, I take it. Actually, it's the same hand, but that don't sound as good.
The rest of it's fine because it's all the generic kind of I'm English, I'm hard, that kind of thing. Ross Kemp on gangs.
Maybe they are just trying to openly take the mick out of everybody. Maybe that is just the thing. The fact that every single kind of ethnicity is targeted in this game, maybe a little bit more in some.
That's a lot of the problem with the game, is that it doesn't have a specific tone. It doesn't quite know if it wants to be serious or whether it wants to go for that more kind of Team Fortress loadout
tongue-in-cheek kind of
approach.
Stuff,
yeah, exactly right. And considering the game is set in London as well, despite a couple of things that are forced at you, I wouldn't have thought that it didn't feel like London. Yeah, I mean, despite the fact you had the landmarks and things occasionally, it's just
which
it could be anywhere.
Even though we're both British and you know more about London than I do, I mean, I live in York, and so basically I don't generally leave York, and so I think I've been to London once. But what did you think to the the maps. I mean, obviously, are you located in London? I can't remember if you said
for a long time I
you
was.
were.
And in fact, I worked in a lot of areas that are very similar to that. Now, I mean, it's artistic license. Nothing's going to be perfect on there. I will say for it, one of the levels was suspiciously similar to one that we've played in a previous Call of Duty, being in Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah, the subway station place.
Even the outside, so you got the outside of it.
Weirdly, yeah. All they had done was basically remove the stairs going down, and it was just like a flat surface. But it had that. This game just seems like it's just borrowing from so many different sources. But then again, doesn't know where to take it. You know. But like,
so you got the,
what about the layout?
Type.
So like, do you think was it a good use of that map? Do you think? I thought it was alright.
There are. I will say, for its favour, again, there are a couple of points which are quite interesting. Where if you push on with the objectives, there's certain parts that it changes the locale and the type of environment, and you've got to change your class to actually customize to that. You know, climatize even, but you know, you've got to kind of think on your toes, and you've got to switch classes. So it's good that it does force you to do that rather than just sticking with the same class. You know, you can't be a sniper at the back all the time,
exactly.
or you can't do just artillery. You've got to think on your feet for when you get into these situations.
So as we notice, things like when you're going for those C4 objectives, they're generally in roofed areas, so you can't just spam continuously the artillery strike or. Wait, this was something that really confused me, because you've got that one character who has an artillery... Artie has artillery spotter, and then you've got artillery from the other guy, which is a Scottish dude. And so it was like... that bit confused you, but it's one of those things where instead of just the team holding back who were defending, just dropping... Because they were spamming on certain maps. There was that map where we were against each other, and you had to escort the... I know what you were up to. And basically you were all just sitting back, spamming on top of our little APC drone thing, which was getting damaged and having to fix it over and over again. But with the C4 mode, there wasn't like a roof to do that. You had to come out and hold those points, and then obviously when one team's focusing on one pathway, we'd then try and sneak round, you know, and try and get behind you. But you know, it's got that little bit, but it just feels so basic, you know. There was the little turrets and such, but there was no kind of like tactic, you know. It was if one team is that way, go the other way, because you're gonna die.
It was very much like that. I mean, I think we should talk about some of the good points in it.
There are
a few.
Let's hold back.
As far as the actual map design goes, regardless of artistic licensing and that, they were actually very well thought out, fleshed kind of environments, totally. Especially when you've got certain objectives. So if you're on a defense mission, there are things you can sabotage, which then release things like poison gas and that, and cut off an entire route that the enemy has to come at you, so you end up funneling them, and that's a really nice kind of interactive thing that you don't see.
And it also
much.
kind of puts a little bit of distraction on the main objective as well, because I found myself fighting for that little air vent control system for the majority of some matches. So there is that kind of thing where even though you can go for the main objective, but there are actually things where you can battle for easier routes, which was kind of cool. So it kind of makes me curious to see how they will take that further, if they ever bring out even more maps with different ways of pulling off like environmental advantages. You know, that would be quite cool. I mean, there were like, I think there was 8 maps, maybe 7, and they all kind of share that same toxic gas kind of, you know, reward route kind of thing. But it makes me curious. I mean, okay, here's a positive thing then with that. What kind of things could you add to maps, do you think, that might be quite cool, not just the toxic thing?
Oh,
come on, let's get some of our game design knowledge on here.
I think you could probably do things like, I mean, if they added certain things like, there's I'm running around in circles here.
It's alright.
No, it's fine. So I mean, what they could always add is like the end of that level where you're underground, where you release the 2001 graphic water.
Mm-hmm. That would have been cool. You could actually do kind of like in Battlefield, where you could destroy the dam and just like knock everybody out of that massive tidal wave. You could do that. It was a bit of a shame that they left that tidal wave in some of the outcome. Well, it was just for that subway map, but it's a shame that they left that out just as a closing 5-second cutscene kind of thing, because those would be quite advantageous. You could actually use that just like the toxic gas, where it does fill up an entire area, but pretend that you're holding down, bunkering down in one of these pathway routes, and instead of having toxic, you could then hold, this control system and then just let loose this tidal wave. That'd be so cool, and it'll give you like one of these kind of things where the enemy team would be stuck in there, kind of like Moses and the whole opening of the sea, they're just closing it, just for like a one-off. That'd be, I'd so take on that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
Or there was also the one with, what was the Japanese class called with the orbital laser? I mean, obviously they've got
Kira.
Yeah, so they've got like a futuristic kind of thing going on there as well. So, but then again, it would be really good if they actually put some of that parkour in there. You could put things like laser grids that could because we did see as well dismemberment. So having to like crawl under or slide under all these things and move, promoting that kind of different gameplay styles and stuff. I do look forward to seeing what they can potentially bring in variety to not just the combat, but also the environmental possibilities as well. It does seem like quite potential, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it really does, and it's something that is missing from a lot of games these days. And it is something that a lot of people are wanting more of. They want a bit of diversity in what they're doing. They want to be able to shape the battlefield that they're actually on.
And we did have that. I mean, you could close the shutter barricades from the defending team, so instead of them just rushing to that defense point it was just for that kind of tidal wave control system thing to end the match, but you can actually do that. You can lock the defensive team out, and they have to work their way around, get to the control system, and then, fight for that terminal that way as well. So, I mean, there are things there. It's just they seem to spread out the same thing over all the maps, which is a little bit of a shame, I guess.
Yeah, it is one of these things. I think that's my overall feeling for the game. Is just it's a shame. It could.
It's the shame. It's the same.
It's a shame. It's the same. It could have been so much more, but they seem to have taken a lot of the kind of shortcuts. Well,
have you noticed that we're actually going back to the negatives?
I know. That's the thing. There are far too many negatives to control, and to quote. To quote Dr. Malcolm from Jurassic Park, obscure reference, I know. They didn't learn anything from themselves. They just took what other people had done, and they're just selling it, and they're selling it, and that's it.
There you go.
And that's
a little bit of a Jurassic Park plug.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be great? Free to play Jurassic
Movie's
Park
coming out soon, guys.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out.
But just overall, unfortunately, it is just lacking. There's no hook, line, and sinker. There's no reason for me to say, The question, I suppose, the big question is, why would you play this over anything else? I mean, they've got some big competition out there.
I mean, it basically is Heroes of the Storm, the first-person shooter, just really expensive and locked off.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of other shooters do the whole free-to-play thing much better. Team Fortress is obviously always going to be the golden example for that, where a lot of it is aesthetics that you would pay for, and adding that kind of thing to it is a much better way of doing it. Loadout as well is also a very nice one. Yeah,
Loadout did it brilliantly. No, hats off to Loadout, definitely. And I mean, Warframe has it questionably. I mean, their platinum prices are ridiculous. I mean, as we mentioned before, when we first started this, you can purchase characters and such, and they are £50 if you want some of the best characters, or you can grind them, which is fine. But at least they're giving you that option where it's easy to achieve through the grind. If you love the game and you want to dedicate your time to it, then do it, but don't do it in a way where you have to treat it like a job. It seems that Dirty Bomb really wants commitment out of you, and a lot of games they realize, they know from the start that they are games. They want to be games, and they want you to play it as a game and have fun, enjoy it, and not think, right, well, Saturday night I could be playing with my mates, but I'm gonna grind 24 hours to get 1,000 credits to knock off from a £50,000 requirement to purchase my next character.
Yeah, and also, of course, that whole thing about playing with friends. We've got to wait till level.
And this as well.
At least 2-3 hours into this game, and
part of the grind. If you want to play with friends, you have to unlock level 5. And it takes ages to get to level 5, it seems, as well.
So the only way to do it is for someone to join a game, and you have to quickly join them through the actual Steam OS itself.
Which is so archaic.
Yeah, it's beyond... It's something that should have been fixed a long time ago, and something that obviously every other company is doing much better. I think we're probably drawing to a close here in the actual game itself.
Yeah. There's just so much to say, but such little time to do it. One thing I will note, though, I mean, this is something, as we were saying before about Arkham Origins, was that a lot of the games that they previously did, they had network issues across the board. So with Arkham Origins, first time Batman ever had multiplayer, they completely balls it up. It had so much potential, and they just chucked it away, and just destroyed their reputation. Then there was Brink. Again, really good concept, really good potential there. Network code, threw it all away, just destroyed it. And they never went back to fix it, but with Dirty Bomb, the network was stable for the most part. I mean, they did have that thing where they have combined the US and EU together onto the same servers, which... we don't know if that's going to stay until, after the beta or not, but... At least there's some hope that for once we're going to have a splash damage game that is stable and playable. Yeah,
Yeah, it's absolutely that, and the fact our pings themselves didn't drop below 100 each time, sometimes going up to about 200-300 because of, despite the fact saying it's an EU server, clearly states in the bottom corner that it's a US to EU server. So they definitely need to sort out localization if they want to keep it a nice smooth transition. Now, frame rate on it was absolutely fine. It didn't really drop below about 60 whilst I was playing it anyway.
It's because it was holding back all those renderings.
Yeah, that's right. It would help if it actually gave me the gun textures. But personally, how I feel about it, I just think that they're expecting too much from the player. The paywall is a bit of a joke. I say a bit of a joke, is an absolute joke. And I mean, personally, I'll be waiting. I'll be giving this a miss now, and I'll be waiting for Blizzard's Overwatch, which looks already to have a lot more polish and a lot more going for it.
Yeah, Overwatch looks fantastic. Definitely. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen through this beta. Maybe they'll be taking on a lot of feedback like they did with Evolve. Turtle Rock actually did a fantastic job taking in loads of feedback from the alpha, the beta. And so you never know if Splash Damage may be taking a turn for the good, and taking on some actual feedback and fixing things and doing things right. But at the same time, the beta is actually officially available now on Steam. Is it just on Steam?
Just on Steam, no plans for console release.
No, and I assume it's going to be free to play.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't now at the beta at the moment. But if you do want to play that, viewers, then you can. It is on there to have a go on, get your credit card ready. But at the same time, it's been me, Josh, and Tom for the Game Fanatics talking about Dirty Bomb, and we'll see you next time.
Knock yourself out. The number one key to teamwork is this: don't be a dick.
Get some! Oh, yeah!